Okay, pause whatever you're doing because I need you emotionally seated for this. Imagine you're just existing, minding your business, raising kids, surviving life, and then you casually decide to write a letter, a harmless little letter, to a stranger, as a favor, and that one decision absolutely ruins your life because suddenly you're emotionally attached to someone you've never met. War, cancer, grief, and fate all decide to tag team your piece, and the universe is like, oh, you wanted a comfort story? Cute. This is one of those stories where love sneaks in through the back door, hope gets reduced to percentages, and every time you think, okay, surely it can't get worse, it immediately does. This isn't romance the way you're used to it. This is connection under fire, grief with no warning label, and the kind of emotional damage that feels way too real, like someone looked directly into your worst fears and said, let's unpack that. So buckle up, because this story does not tiptoe into chaos, it sprints. Alright, let's talk about The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. A book that looks innocent, sounds heartfelt, and then emotionally tackles you down a flight of stairs. This story revolves around the two people who should never have met, but the universe said, actually, yes, painfully. First, we have Ella, single mom, small mountain town, running a struggling inn, raising 5-year-old twins entirely on her own. She is exhausted, broke, fiercely loving, and operating purely on survival mode and stubborn determination. Ella is the kind of woman who puts everyone else first, never asks for help, and quietly carries the weight of the world like it's her job. Then there's Beckett, also known as Chaos, a highly trained soldier who lives in war zones, trusts no one, swears by nothing, and treats emotional attachment like a security risk. This man doesn't believe in home, doesn't believe in love, and has trauma stacked on absolutely not dealing with it. These two do not meet the normal way. No coffee shop, no cute run-in, no rom-com nonsense. They meet through letters, pen, paper, distance, and somehow, against all logic, against all odds, they become each other's safest place. And that's when the story decides to stop being gentle, because this book isn't just about romance, it's about parenthood, illness, war, grief, and the terrifying idea that love can arrive right before everything falls apart. If you like stories that feel painfully human, blur the line between hope and heartbreak, and leave you staring at the wall afterward, questioning your emotional stability, you need to read this book. Not casually, not lightly, but with tissues, emotional support, and the understanding that you will not be the same afterward. And trust me, this is only the beginning. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. This all starts with a letter that should have stayed unsent. Not a love letter, not a confession, not even a flirt. Just a polite, slightly unhinged, sleep-deprived letter written in pen by a 24-year-old woman who is already doing too much with not enough help, and absolutely no room in her life for emotional complications. Ella writes like someone who has learned the hard way that erasing things doesn't erase consequences. Pen only. No rewrites, no backtracking, just vibes, regret, and peanut butter cookies that may or may not survive her brother's appetite. She opens strong, calls him Chaos, because that's what her brother says they call him, which is already a red flag. No one with a nickname like that is emotionally safe. She makes it very clear this is not a dating thing. Military guys don't do it for her. Men in general don't. She does not have time. She has twins. She has a business. She has a town that watches her like a reality show they didn't ask to subscribe to. She's a single mom. Yes, by choice. No, she does not regret it. And she is already tired of anyone who might imply otherwise. She gives the highlights like she's ripping off a bandage. Married briefly, pregnant immediately, 2 heartbeats, 1 man vanished in the middle of the night. And honestly, good riddance. Kids were never his thing, and Ella does not waste energy romanticizing ghosts. Maisie and Cole are 5, twins. One quiet and observant, the other a walking OSHA violation. Ella loves them like a fortress loves its walls, thick, high, and intentionally isolating. She knows she overreacts. She knows she overprotects. She knows it keeps her lonely. She also knows she'd do it again without hesitation. She runs solitude, the bed and breakfast her grandmother raised her in, took it over at 20. Babies still in diapers, mortgage to the ceiling, guests expecting luxury while she's duct taping survival together in the background. She ends the letter with warmth, cookies, and an out if he wants it. Write back if you want. If not, that's fine too. There's someone in Colorado thinking of you. It's generous. It's brave. It's the first mistake. Because chaos does not open the letter. Chaos is busy, not dying. Chaos lives in a place that technically does not exist, doing work that cannot be acknowledged, surrounded by men who measure time in missions and loss in body parts. Routine is sacred. Monotony is comfort. Anything that breaks pattern is dangerous. Today breaks pattern. A mission goes sideways. Someone loses an arm. Someone else almost loses more. The sky is blue. The ground is filthy. And everything feels wrong in a way that doesn't wash off. Chaos throws a toy for havoc. A 70-pound black Labrador trained to do things that make survival possible. She's flawless, loyal, deadly. She listens better than people ever have. His best friend Mac tries, once again, to suggest that maybe being emotionally isolated isn't the flex Chaos thinks it is, that maybe havoc can't be the only thing anchoring him to the world. Chaos shuts it down like he shuts down everything else. Attachments are liabilities. People leave, people die, places change. The math never works out in favor of caring too much. Mac mentions the letter from his sister, Ella. Chaos freezes. He knows who she is, blonde, bright smile, kind eyes, the woman Mac's been proud of since they were kids, the one who held everything together after their parents died, the one who raised twins alone and turned grief into grit, and there's a letter from her, on his bed, waiting. He does not like it. He hates the implication, hates the pity, hates the idea that he needs fixing. He hates the word family even more, so he doesn't open it. Days pass, missions happen, a new guy knocks over his stuff and nearly gets eaten by havoc for touching her without permission. Chaos explains calmly that swearing is lazy vocabulary and havoc will absolutely kill you if asked. 3 nights later, the new guy is dead. Johnson barely earned his name, died saving someone else. His bunk is empty. The room is too quiet. Chaos turns 28 in a place that does not celebrate birthdays. Mortality shows up uninvited and sits heavy on his chest, and suddenly, the idea of a letter feels different. Not attachment, never that, just connection. He opens it in the dark with a flashlight balanced on his shoulder and reads it once, twice, over and over until Ella feels real, until her words have weight, until the woman who makes cookies and raises twins alone becomes something he can't stop thinking about. He imagines her mornings, her exhaustion, her strength. The man who left her earns a silent verdict, unforgivable. He writes back, all caps, no swearing, no fluff, just honesty. He admits he's bad with people, that he likes her writing in pen because it means she doesn't censor herself, that he turned 28 minutes ago and has no one outside the men beside him, and then he asks the question that slips out when defenses are down and the night is too quiet. What's it like to be the center of someone's universe? Ella reads the reply 3 times. She did not expect one. Part of her hoped there wouldn't be, because this is dangerous. A blank page is freedom. A response is a door opening. Chaos doesn't feel chaotic. He feels lonely. She tucks the letter away as Maisie complains about boredom and rubs her hip like it's been hurting forever. Ella notices. She always notices. Doctor appointments blur together. Tests come back clean. Scans show nothing. Dr. Franklin suggests stress, suggests growing pains, suggests the internet is the problem. Ella knows better. Maisie can barely walk some days. Powerlessness settles in like a weight she can't shake. Life, cruelly, does not pause. Solitude makes the top 10 list. The magazine arrives. The photos are perfect. The review is glowing. This should be the moment everything turns around. Ada cries. Larry dances. The future looks bright for exactly 5 minutes. Then the school calls. Maisie collapsed on the playground. Fever over 104. The joy drops straight through the floor. Miles away, Chaos receives another letter, cookies included. Ella answers his question the only way she knows how, by telling the truth sideways. She isn't the center of her children's universe. She's their gravity, the force that keeps them grounded until they're ready to fly. Because centers disappear, gravity endures. Chaos folds the letter carefully and guards it like a secret, like a lifeline. As the helicopter lifts toward another mission, he thinks about Telluride, about mountains dipped in gold, about a woman who writes in pen and believes gravity can be gentle. He tells himself he isn't good for anyone. The ground rises to meet them, and gravity, once again, does not ask permission. The Tahoe lurched forward, then slammed to a stop like Ella's body had remembered something her brain tried to forget. She rolled the window down just as Beckett reached the front door. "Mr. Gentry?" He turned. Of course he did, and Havoc turned with him, perfectly synced, like they shared a nervous system. Dog, man, shadow, all one unit. Ella stumbled through the words like they were foreign currency. Thanks for the steps, the catching, the binder, the phone, the fact that gravity didn't win today. You don't ever have to thank me. Not said gently, not said flirtatiously, said like a rule, a law of physics. Then a nod, then he was gone, and something electric and warm and deeply inconvenient zipped through Ella's body and disappeared before she could name it, which was fine. Naming things had been a bad idea lately. She didn't have time for feelings, she had scans. 10 minutes later, she was illegally parked at the elementary school because rules about bus lanes meant nothing when cancer dictated the schedule. She signed Maisie out while the receptionist chewed gum and made small talk like this was a normal Tuesday. It wasn't. Maisie was sitting on a bench in the hallway, Colt glued to her side like gravity in sneaker form, the principal hovering nearby with an aggressively festive tie. Colt didn't ask. He announced, "Going with you." No, absolutely not. Today was scan day, and scan day did not include witnesses. The twins did that thing again. The silent communication, the shared soul language, and Maisie solved it before Ella could lose the argument. "It's okay," she said, already taking Colt's hand. "You don't want to miss fried chicken night." Colt looked at Ella like he was filing emotional damage for later, then melted instantly for his sister. They hugged, puzzle pieces, always. "I don't want her to be alone," Colt whispered. "She won't be," Ella promised, knowing damn well promises were getting harder to keep. The principal tried to talk about attendance, kindergarten attendance, while a 6-year-old fought a war inside her bones. Ella smiled with her teeth and agreed to a discussion that would never matter. 2 hours later, the San Juan Cancer Center smelled like antiseptic and dread. Ella paced like motion could force outcomes. Maisie kicked her legs, pink beanie bright against white walls, unbothered in the way only children with borrowed bravery can be. Please let it be working. 5 months of poison, 5 months of needles and vomiting and shaved heads and pretending. It had to mean something. Dr. Hughes walked in with that face, the one doctors have when they're about to either save you or ruin you. "It's time," she said. Chemo had done its job. The tumor was small enough to operate, which meant the war wasn't over. It was escalating. Ella nodded, held it together, filed the terror for later like she always did. Later came fast. Back at Solitude, chaos was waiting, not the call sign, the energy. Ella stormed inside like she could outrun the day, only to trip straight into Haley's gossip and Ada's knowing looks. 7 months. Ryan sent him, special ops, a dog trained to find bombs and bodies, a man who moved like grief lived in his muscles. Ella told herself she'd ignore him. Men like that always left. Men always left. Then she almost ate dirt on the porch and Beckett caught her again, reflexes unfairly perfect, arms solid, binder and phone, saved like it was nothing. "I'm late," she blurted, because apparently that was her personality now. He smiled, not really, and asked if he could help. She snapped, immediately felt bad, immediately kept snapping, and then she left because Maisie came first, always. But the universe was petty, because the next time Ella slammed on the brakes, it wasn't for traffic. It was for the realization that the man she didn't want, didn't need, and absolutely did not ask for, wasn't going anywhere. And worse, the scans had finally said yes, which meant surgery was coming. And nothing, not strength, not anger, not control, could stop what came next. The door had opened, the fight had entered its next round, and there was no reversing it now. The panic doesn't arrive politely, it doesn't knock, it doesn't ask permission. It shows up mid-sentence, mid-phone call, mid-life, and suddenly the air in the room changes. She left Maisie's big binder in the office, Haley whispers, one hand over the receiver like this is gossip, and not a medical emergency. That binder is not paper. It's oxygen. It scans, labs, medication schedules, oncology notes, blood counts, proof. Proof that this nightmare is real and being tracked and maybe, if the universe feels generous, being beaten. And Ella is already gone, already halfway to Denver, already white-knuckling a steering wheel with one hand and her sanity with the other. Beckett doesn't hesitate. There is no debate, no inner monologue, no weighing of pros and cons. This is what soldiers do when chaos hits. They move. He takes the phone, gives clipped instructions, promises delivery like he's coordinating an extraction instead of returning a forgotten binder. Ada appears with it already in hand, because of course she does. That woman misses nothing, especially not when things are about to fall apart. But then comes the problem no one says out loud. Havoc. The dog who has been at Beckett's side through war zones and loss and the kind of grief that doesn't fit into language. The dog who goes where he goes. Always. Except hospitals don't allow dogs like Havoc. Not really. Not when white blood cell counts are a gamble and germs are everywhere and fear is already doing enough damage on its own. And then Colt appears. Small. Determined. Hair growing back in uneven patches because childhood has been interrupted by things it should never have to understand. Havoc, he breathes, dropping to his knees like this is church and the dog is sacred. He promises everything, food, walks, toys, her sleeping in his bed. He promises with the kind of sincerity only children have, the kind adults spend their whole lives trying to earn back. Beckett kneels in front of him and makes a choice that hurts more than it should. Havoc stays. Orders are given carefully. Not protect, stay. Be nice. This isn't a mission. This is trust. Havoc chooses Colt without hesitation, and Beckett walks away feeling like he's left a lung behind. The drive to Denver is long and loud in the quiet way, the kind of quiet that lets thoughts get sharp. Donahue's words echo. The offer, the paperwork, the escape hatch back to the only life Beckett ever understood, a temporary disabled list, time, options, a way back, temptation disguised as mercy. He doesn't take it, not yet. Ella needs him. That's the mission now. Everything else can burn. By the time he reaches the hospital, the binder is delivered, the crisis averted, but the gravity has shifted. Surgery is looming. Fear is thick. And Ella is doing that thing where she pretends she's made of steel while actively cracking. They don't talk much. They don't need to. Some moments don't require dialogue. They require presence. And Beckett stays. Not as chaos. Not as the man from the letters. Just Beckett. The stranger who isn't really a stranger. The soldier who doesn't know how to stop guarding something once it matters. Later, much later, when exhaustion has set in and walls are thinner, Ella finds herself standing at his cabin door again, this time with questions she can't keep boxed anymore. The letter changes everything, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like gravity. Ryan asked him to stay, asked him to help, asked him to not let her do this alone, and suddenly Beckett isn't an intrusion, he's a promise kept. They don't resolve anything. They don't make plans. They don't kiss. This isn't that kind of moment. It's worse. It's two people standing in the wreckage of loss, realizing they're tethered now, whether they like it or not. Ella leaves with the truth burning in her chest and surgery ahead of her. and one last thought she refuses to examine too closely. Beckett can't keep his promise to Ryan if she doesn't let him, and Beckett watches her go, knowing he's already crossed every line he ever drew for himself. The mission isn't temporary anymore, it's personal. Later, earlier, time is fake at this point. Ella is standing in a grocery store debating Gatorade flavors like it's a life or death decision. Because it is. She's calculating vomit color, choosing sour apple because green looks less like blood when your kid throws it up. This is the kind of math no parent signs up for. And then, boom, Jeff's parents, right there in the aisle, picking out Thanksgiving turkeys, debating 16 pounds versus 18 like the world isn't actively ending for her. They don't see the kids as grandchildren. They see them as liabilities, PR problems, inconveniences that don't fit into their polished lives. They once tried to pay Ella to erase her pregnancy. Recently, they refused to help with insurance while Maisie is literally fighting for her life. And Ella realizes something devastating. Maisie might never get the chance to decide if she wants answers about her father. And Ella doesn't know if protecting her from that pain makes her a monster. But she knows she doesn't care. That thought scares her more than anything. So she writes to Chaos, because that's where the truth goes when you don't know if you're good or just surviving. Memorial Day weekend arrives pretending everything is fine. Colt has his first soccer game. He is 6 years old and emotionally prepared to dine on the souls of his enemies. Beckett is fully in dad mode without being allowed to call it that. He's got the cleats, the shin guards, the sunscreen, the pep talk, the Spartan warrior mindset, which Ella absolutely did not authorize, but also she's not stopping him. Maisie wants to go. Of course she does. She doesn't want to miss another thing. Ella hesitates, because Maisie looks okay, but okay is a lie chemo tells sometimes. Beckett stays out of it, mostly, except for mentioning the weather, the shade tent, and the fact that he can scare people away if needed. Maisie wins, obviously, and for a moment, just a moment, life looks like it's supposed to. Sun, laughter, tiny uniforms, Ella shouting encouragement like a mom who forgot she doesn't usually yell in public. Beckett watching her like this is the version of her that should exist forever. Maisie falls asleep under the shade tent, Havoc curled protectively at her feet. Beckett feels it in his chest, the fear. If she's this tired now, what happens next round? Colt's team loses. He takes it hard, 6-year-old hard, like the world has personally betrayed him. Beckett sits with him, unties cleats, doesn't sugarcoat, teaches him the thing no one teaches boys early enough. Losing doesn't make you weak, it makes you better. Then Colt does something that absolutely wrecks him. He walks over to the kid who beat him, compliments him, shakes his hand. Tiny king behavior. And then, quietly, Colt asks the question Beckett is not ready for. Is this what it feels like? Having a dad? Beckett has no good answer, because the words "I'm here" are right there, but they don't belong to him, so he doesn't say them. And it almost breaks him in half. Pizza night feels earned. The kids argue toppings. Ella relaxes a fraction. Beckett insists on paying. Ella insists harder. They flirt like two people standing on the edge of something dangerous. And then, Jeff's parents show up. Shock on their faces. Recognition. Judgment. Havoc growls. Ella snaps. No, go, now. Beckett steps in without thinking. Positions himself between them and the kids like instinct carved into bone. Havoc is ready, teeth out, threat assessed. The message is clear. You don't get access to these children. They leave. Ella holds it together until they're gone. Then she doesn't. Not really. Later that night, the house is quiet. Kids asleep. Havoc snoring. Ella comes downstairs in flannel pants and exhaustion. She tells him everything. Jeff leaving, being 18, pregnant with twins, asked to abort them, refusing, being abandoned, being offered money to erase them, burning the check, burning the cabin, choosing survival with zero safety net. Beckett listens, doesn't interrupt, doesn't fix, just stays. And he wants her. God, he wants her. Not just her body, her life, her mess, her kids, her pain. They cross a line, then stop. Because Ryan, because lies, because timing is cruel. Beckett admits the truth without admitting the truth. If he lets himself have her now, he might ruin everything. Ella thinks it's because she's a mom. It's not. It's because he's already fallen in love with her under a different name. They choose a movie instead. They fall asleep on the couch anyway, wrapped together, safe, almost happy. And then the night cracks open. Beckett wakes to panic. Colt standing there, eyes wide. Something is wrong. Something's wrong with Maisie, he whispers. She's on fire. And just like that, the illusion shatters. The next chapter opens in that ugly space between what the military tells families and what actually happens to soldiers when things go sideways. The kind of truth no one wants to imagine about their brother, or best friend, or the man who never came home. Beckett's jaw is locked. He lets people talk, lets them speculate, lets them joke about covert ops and classified deaths like it's a movie plot, because correcting them would mean cracking open something he spent months welding shut. The only reason he doesn't snap is because he tells himself the guy means well. He's just trying to protect Ella. But Beckett doesn't need anyone explaining grief to him. He lived it, bled through it, buried it with his own hands. They find the pink bandana tied to a tree stump, the universal sign that the search just turned real. Boots crunch dirt, radios buzz, the air shifts. It's work time, no room for ghosts now. An hour later, the hiker is alive, airlifted, saved. Havoc did her thing like the miracle she is. Someone compliments Beckett's dog, and Beckett agrees because some things are sacred. Loyalty, instinct, showing up when it matters. On the hike down, silence settles in, the good kind, the kind that doesn't demand explanations. Beckett realizes something dangerous on that trail. Ryan wasn't the only person who changed him. Ella did too. So did her kids. So did this town that keeps tangling people together, whether they want it or not. At the trucks, Gutierrez apologizes, awkwardly, for talking out of turn about Ella. Beckett shuts it down fast. Then he drops the truth like a live grenade. Ryan hasn't been gone that long. 5 months, 7 days. A handful of brutal hours Beckett will never forget. Ryan wasn't just someone. He was family, brother in arms, the person who taught Beckett how to let someone in. And now that Ryan's gone, Beckett has redirected that loyalty straight at the people Ryan loved most. Ella, Colt, Maisie, nothing, and Beckett means nothing comes before their safety. He drives home exhausted, Havoc curled beside him, brain refusing to power down. That's when he passes Ella's cabin. That's when the line snaps, because Beckett knows something Ella refuses to say out loud. Her insurance is failing her daughter, but his wouldn't. He slams the brakes, throws the truck into reverse, and makes a decision that will detonate everything. Ella answers the door confused, braid loose, kids inside. Beckett doesn't even let himself step over the threshold. This isn't a conversation meant for little ears. He asks the question she hates most, the one every parent dreads. Will Maisie die without the treatment? Ella says yes. Beckett doesn't hesitate. He says the words like they're tactical, logical, clean. Marry me. Ella thinks she misheard him, then realizes she didn't, then absolutely loses her mind. They're not dating. They haven't kissed. Marriage is sacred to her in the way only broken people understand. And Beckett, this man who won't even cross certain physical lines, is standing on her porch offering a ring made of paperwork and desperation. He explains, insurance, dependence, coverage, no romance required, no expectations, just a legal fix to save her child. And that's the problem. Because Ella doesn't hear insurance, she hears temporary, she hears eventual abandonment, she hears Jeff all over again, she tears into him, about vows, about forever, about promises men make right before they leave, about how marriage isn't a loophole, it's a lifetime. Beckett listens, takes it, then says the one thing that hits hardest. He loves her kids, not hypothetically, not on paper, fully, completely, without conditions, that spark of hope Ella hates flares anyway. And then he admits the unforgivable truth. Maisie asked him if she was going to die, and he promised her she wouldn't. That's when Ella explodes. Because hope is dangerous. Because promises like that can shatter a child if they break. Because Beckett had no right and every right all at once. They collide. Hard. Fear versus faith. Trauma versus honor. Ella accuses him of not understanding the long haul. Beckett accuses her of sending her child into battle with nothing but optimism and grit. And then, the line that changes everything. Tell me how Ryan died. Beckett freezes, because that story isn't his to tell. And Ella realizes in real time that she just asked him to betray the very integrity she claims to need in order to trust him. The porch goes cold. Beckett leaves, still promises to pick up Colt for soccer, because that's what he does. He shows up. Ella spirals with Ada later, stress-eating cookies like it's an Olympic sport. Ada doesn't coddle her. Ada doesn't soothe. Ada drops truth bombs with surgical precision. Is she really willing to draw a moral line that costs her daughter her life? That question wrecks her, because the answer is no. The next day, Beckett brings Colt home. Ella stops him, apologizes, admits the truth she's been dodging. She trusts him with her kids. Her fear is about herself. She invites him to dinner with her lawyer. Beckett agrees instantly. At dinner, the solution finally emerges, sideways and imperfect and terrifying. Not marriage, adoption. Beckett adopting Colt and Maisie, legally, permanently, insurance secured, father on paper and in every way that matters, without forcing Ella into a marriage she isn't ready to survive. Beckett doesn't hesitate. Forever, always, he'll take the risk. He'll take the responsibility. He'll take whatever role Ella allows, as long as Maisie lives. There's a catch. Jeff has to sign away his rights. That name hits Ella like a physical blow. On the drive home, Beckett promises he'll handle it. Promises again. Offers everything. Background checks. Finances. His name. His life. Ella still hesitates, because trusting someone to stay is the hardest leap there is. Beckett sees it. Accepts it, gets out of the truck anyway, leaves it behind, walks into the dark, still showing up, still keeping his word, still choosing them, even when Ella can't fully choose him back. Ella is reading letter number 4, written by Chaos back when life was simpler and heartbreak hadn't fully unpacked its bags yet. And the letter? It hits like a sucker punch wrapped in humor. Chaos talks about Ella's kids like they're tiny warriors, fearless, feral, and absolutely not to be messed with. He jokes, but underneath the jokes is a quiet truth. He admires her, deeply, not just as a mom, but as someone brave enough to love when love guarantees loss. Chaos admits something he never let himself want. A future, kids, stability. He's terrified of screwing it up, terrified of caring too much, terrified of losing, and in the most devastating way possible, he calls his emotional restraint what it really is: cowardice. Meanwhile, Ella, she's the opposite. She loves recklessly, loudly, with everything she has. And just like that, the letter becomes a mirror Ella didn't ask for. Cut to the present, and Ella is absolutely not okay, but in the most rom-com on the verge of being rated R way possible, because Beckett winked at her, a single wink, one tiny facial movement, and Ella is spiraling like a woman who has been emotionally starved for years and just got handed a full-course meal. She's dress shopping with Haley, trying to pretend that this is about adoption paperwork and not the fact that Beckett has suddenly unlocked flirt mode like a dangerous new character setting. The dress is lavender, retro, soft. It makes her feel like a woman again, instead of just a mother in crisis mode. Haley, of course, is feral about it and declares that Beckett is going to absolutely lose his mind, and possibly his clothes, when he sees her. Ella tries to play it cool, claims Beckett isn't interested like that, claims she has bigger problems, claims she is totally normal and unaffected. Haley immediately dismantles that lie. Small-town gossip confirms Beckett hasn't touched another woman since arriving, and the implication is loud. He wants Ella. He's just choosing restraint over desire, loyalty over instinct, and that choice is starting to hurt. They nearly missed the courthouse appointment because yearning apparently destroys time perception. When Ella steps outside and the Beckett sees her, the man visibly short-circuits. His eyes track her like he's committing the image to memory. He looks stunned, swallows hard, and suddenly this isn't about paperwork anymore. It's about what they're pretending not to feel. Inside the courthouse, Ella hesitates. Memories of her first marriage surface. The mistake, the lesson, the children it gave her. She names it out loud. She tells Beckett that every wrong step led her here, to him. 30 minutes later, everything changes. A judge signs a document, pens move, names become permanent. Beckett is now legally Colt and Maisie's father. And even though everyone keeps calling it practical, insurance, protection, strategy, Ella feels it in her chest. This isn't just ink. This is belonging. This is Beckett choosing forever in the only way that matters right now. She falls in love with him right there, quietly, completely, which makes what happens next feel criminal because Beckett takes her on a perfect date, dinner, wine, dancing under open air like they're not standing on a minefield of unspoken feelings. He walks her home and then he hugs her. That's it. No kiss, no escalation, just a hug. Respectful, devastating, and absolutely not enough. Ella storms into her house 4 hours later, ready to declare emotional war. Ada sees it immediately, calls it what it is. Ella is in love, and Beckett is holding himself back out of honor, fear, and loyalty to a ghost. Ada, being Ada, gives her the push Ella needs. Stop being passive. Stop waiting. Want something. Ella stands alone in her office afterward, staring at Chaos's words. You are enough. And for the first time in a long time, she believes it. So she does something terrifying. She goes after what she wants. Ella drives to Beckett's cabin with her heart in her throat and fear licking at her heels. Knocks before she can talk herself out of it. Beckett answers, instantly worried about Maisie, because of course he is. Inside his cabin, Ella notices the kids' drawings everywhere, proof he didn't just sign papers, he rearranged his life. She doesn't want a drink. She wants answers. She calls him out, names the date, the dancing, the almosts, tells him she is not his sister and will never be. The tension snaps. What follows is not gentle, it's desperate. Controlled restraint colliding with months of suppressed need. Ella initiates. Beckett resists, not because he doesn't want her, but because he wants all of her, and he's terrified of changing everything. So he asks the only question that matters. Does she want him? Not flirting, not kissing, him. Ella answers with actions, not words, and once that line is crossed, there's no going back. The night becomes a blur of wanting that's been denied too long. Intense, consuming, emotional in a way that has nothing to do with technique and everything to do with trust. This isn't casual. This is two people finally choosing to stop pretending they don't need each other. When Ella says she loves him, it slips out raw and honest. Beckett doesn't hesitate. He loves her too. Has since the beginning. The thing about happiness is that it never announces itself. It doesn't knock, it just slips in, unpacks its bags, and dares the universe to try something. And the universe, being petty, absolutely accepts the challenge. This chapter opens in that dangerous sweet spot where life feels almost normal, where mornings come with routines instead of dread, where hope has gotten just cocky enough to stand upright without flinching. Christmas arrives quietly, like it's trying not to jinx anything. The kids are alive. That alone makes the day feel sacred. Maisie, fragile but still standing, has reached the strange calm that comes a week after chemo, the lull where her body exhales just enough to pretend this is sustainable. Her hair is gone now, not falling out, not thinning, gone. She made the call herself, said it was easier to be sad all at once instead of a little bit every day, which is a sentence no 6-year-old should ever be wise enough to say. But she said it anyway. The tree is lit, toys are scattered, there is laughter that feels borrowed but still real. And Beckett, who has seen war zones and body bags and things that never leave, chooses to focus on what's good because that's the only way to survive moments like this without losing his mind. Ella is coming, soon, close enough to feel real now. The letters have done something dangerous. They've built intimacy without bodies, trust without faces. 21 letters in, and it feels less like meeting a stranger and more like finally seeing someone already known. Minds first, souls first, bodies later, maybe, or not. The pen, unfortunately, is a liability. And then reality knocks, not softly, not politely. Monday arrives with a ticking clock and an insurance investigator who drove all the way from Denver, which immediately tells you this is not routine, this is not cursory, this is not fine. They move the meeting to Beckett's place to keep Maisie protected, to keep her world intact. Ella shows up holding her binder like a shield, nerves rattling beneath her skin. Beckett tries to reassure her, arms around her, voice steady, but even he knows something is off. Then the door opens, and the past walks in wearing a captain's bars. Donahue doesn't look like a man who wants to be here. He looks like a man who was summoned. Ella recognizes him instantly, not from meetings or paperwork, but from grief, from Ryan's funeral, from that moment when the world split into before and after, and then it gets worse, because Donahue knew chaos, not metaphorically, not in passing, he knew him. The name hangs in the air like a live wire. Ella says it like it still belongs to someone whole, someone heroic, someone gone. Beckett says nothing. His silence is tactical. His life depends on it. The insurance investigator arrives moments later, all sharp edges and sensible suit and eyes that are not here to empathize. Files spread across the table. Questions start flying. How did the adoption happen? When? Why? Who authorized what? Beckett answers calmly. Ryan asked him to take care of his sister. That's the truth. The letter exists. Ella shuts the request down instantly. Private, not for public consumption, but the investigator doesn't blink. $1 million in medical care has a way of stripping privacy bare. The letter hits the table anyway. And suddenly this isn't just about insurance, it's about motive, it's about timing, it's about whether love can be misinterpreted as strategy. The investigator pushes, hard. Why not just marry Ella? Wouldn't that have been easier? Ella answers without hesitation, and her voice is steel. Marriage failed her once, vows meant nothing, paper dissolved, adoption didn't. Adoption was commitment without escape clauses. Beckett didn't just show up, he stayed, he parented, he built tree houses, he packed lunches, he showed up at hospitals and soccer fields and ordinary days that don't look heroic unless you're the one holding them together. Silence follows, the kind that crackles, and then the line is crossed. The investigator admits, casually, almost lazily, that she spoke to Colt at school, without consent, without permission. Ella detonates. This is no longer procedural, this is personal. And it becomes painfully obvious when the truth surfaces. The investigator isn't chasing fraud, she's chasing Donahue. Her brother-in-law didn't get the same loophole, didn't get the same chance, and resentment, dressed up as justice, is still resentment. She threatens to pause treatments, to halt scans, to freeze care while things are reviewed. And that's when Beckett makes the calculation. 3 reasons. That's how he makes decisions now. Ella deserves the truth. Maisie deserves to live. Love is not fraud. He leaves the room and comes back with the one thing he never planned to reveal. The box, letters, drawings, notes, proof of connection that predates diagnosis, proof that this family existed before cancer ever entered the chat. Ella recognizes them instantly. Her breath leaves her body. Why does he have Ryan's letters? Why does he have hers? Why does everything suddenly rearrange itself into something terrifyingly clear? The investigator takes photos, steps outside to make a call, and when she comes back, she's pale, apologetic in that stiff, professional way that doesn't quite reach remorse. The investigation is over. The policy stands, treatments continue, Maisie is safe. The cost just hasn't landed yet. The room empties. Donahue leaves with a final look that says, "This is where the real damage begins." The door closes. The house goes quiet. Ella turns slowly, the puzzle pieces clicking together with a sound that feels like bone breaking. The treehouse, the lettering, the dog, the timing, not coincidence, never coincidence. She asks the question anyway, because denial is a reflex. Who are you? Beckett doesn't reach for her, doesn't soften it, doesn't lie one last time to spare himself. He straightens, he breathes, and he says the thing that ends the chapter and detonates everything that comes next. He gives her his name, his real one, Beckett Gentry, call sign, Chaos. And just like that, the air leaves the room. Somehow, some way, Ella ends up driving down a dirt road that absolutely should not matter, except it does. Everything does. Especially when GPS pins start acting shady and trauma has a sixth sense. She's already tired. Like hospital chair naps, radiation counting, dead brother letter reading, tired. The kind of tired where your body is upright but your soul is dragging behind you like an overpacked carry-on bag with a busted wheel. Maisie is in the passenger seat, small and hopeful and fragile in a way that makes Ella's chest hurt. 2 weeks in the hospital will do that. 2 weeks of watching your kid fight something invisible while you smile and lie and say everything's fine will carve something out of you permanently. And then the name drops. Beckett. Still here. Still in Telluride. Did not disappear like Ella assumed he did, because apparently men who ruin your emotional stability do not evaporate out of courtesy. Maisie's voice cracks just enough to be lethal. She misses him. Of course she does. Kids don't understand emotional self-preservation. They only understand who showed up. Ella lies, gently, badly. The kind of lie parents tell when they're drowning but trying not to splash their kids. Then the trees open up, and there it is, the house. Not just the house, the house. Log cabin, stone pillars, perfect angles, modern rustic Pinterest board come to life. The kind of place Ella would have designed herself if she'd ever let herself dream that far ahead. And then Colt comes sprinting out like a plot twist with legs, with havoc. Ella doesn't need paperwork. She doesn't need a deed. She knows instantly. Beckett bought the land she sold, built a house she never asked for, stayed when she thought he left. The kids are gone inside in seconds, healed by excitement, fueled by love, sprinting through rooms like none of this is complicated at all. Because to kids, it isn't. Adults are the ones who ruin things. Ella stays in the car longer than necessary, arguing with herself like she hasn't already lost, fixes her hair like it matters, tells herself she doesn't care what Beckett thinks while caring very deeply what Beckett thinks. Inside, the house is empty. Not abandoned, unfinished, no pictures, no couch, no proof of a life actually lived. And then he appears. Beckett, jeans, scruff. The audacity to look exactly like the man she loved and exactly like the man who broke her heart. Same voice, same presence, same gravitational pull that makes breathing feel optional. They fumble through small talk like strangers pretending not to know each other's souls. He explains the dinner. Colt insisted. Chicken, rice, peas, radiation-approved food, because Beckett pays attention even when he's not supposed to. Ella confronts him about the house, the land, the fact that he didn't disappear like she thought. He tells the truth. He never left. He stayed because he promised he would. He thought she'd call. And that's the thing about breakups. Both people are usually hurt, but only one gets labeled the villain. The furniture question cracks something open. He didn't buy it because he planned on her choosing it, planned on them, planned on a future that died quietly while he kept breathing. Then Ella asks the wrong question. Is this easy for you? And Beckett, who has been holding himself together with duct tape and self-control, finally breaks. Not loudly, not dramatically, but honestly. He talks about wanting to beg, about not touching her, about Colt calling him a coward, about losing Ella and losing the kids and pretending he's fine because that's easier than admitting he's barely functioning. And then, because life is cruel, he asks if she wants peas. Ella stays. Just dinner, she tells herself. Just food, just normalcy. And it is normal. Kids laughing, lemonade pouring, Beckett listening like every word matters, except it's also excruciating, because this is the life that should have been uninterrupted. Upstairs happens because of course it does. The bedroom is perfect, the bathroom is perfect, the house is perfect, and none of it belongs to her. She makes it clear they are not getting back together. He apologizes, properly, fully, for everything, for the lies, for the letters, for not coming when she asked, for Ryan. And Ella does something quietly radical. She forgives him for Ryan. Not in a neat, inspirational way, but in a brutally honest one. She tells him the truth. The universe is unfair. Blame is a lie we tell ourselves to survive. And if guilt keeps shaping his life, it will ruin everything good left in it. He loves her. She knows. And love still isn't enough. Trust is broken. And she doesn't have the strength to rebuild it while her child is sick. But the kids, that's different. She realizes the one thing she did wrong wasn't leaving him. It was cutting him off from them. So she makes a decision. They'll co-parent. They'll coexist. They'll do the messy, grown-up thing where love doesn't disappear just because the relationship did. Beckett agrees instantly. No ego, no demands. Just gratitude. Downstairs, the kids wait like tiny judges. No reunion, no fairy tale, but something better. They get to keep him. Colt relaxes for the first time in months. Maisie looks lighter, healthier, like hope weighs less than fear. Outside, Ella thanks Beckett for the house he built for her without permission and with too much heart. He asks for friendship. She agrees, even though it hurts. Because sometimes love doesn't come back as fire. Sometimes it comes back as a spark, and sparks are dangerous. But they're also how fires start. We end with Ella driving away, Beckett standing on the porch of the life he almost had, and hope, small, fragile, and stupidly brave, sitting quietly between them, waiting to see if either of them will feed it. We start back with rotors, not metaphorical rotors, real ones, loud enough to rattle bone, familiar enough to feel like home, dangerous enough to mean something has gone very, very wrong. Beckett is in the helicopter before his brain fully catches up to his body. Muscle memory takes over. Gear on. Radio live. Havoc at his side. Tense but ready. The kind of ready that only comes from repetition and trauma and training drilled so deep it bypasses fear. Then the words land. A kid is missing. Not an adult. Not a hiker. A kid. And suddenly this isn't search and rescue anymore. It's personal. It's primal. It's every nightmare he's ever had folded into one sentence. They say the trail name. They say off the grid. They say witness in shock. They say possible fall. And Beckett's brain does the thing it always does under pressure. Starts cataloguing terrain, angles, odds. But his heart is already sprinting ahead, screaming one name over and over. Where are the kids today? He doesn't wait for the full briefing. He never does when it's a child, especially not when the helicopter drops them near a cliff that looks less like a trail and more like the edge of a bad decision. The second his boots hit the ground, he's running. The trail is crowded. Teachers, students, sheriff uniforms, too many people, too much noise, panic hanging in the air like static. Then he sees Mrs. Rivera, and something in his chest fractures. He doesn't ask politely. He doesn't ease into it. His voice rips out of him raw and sharp and barely human. Where are my kids? That's when Maisie breaks from the crowd. Alive, crying, running. He catches her like oxygen, presses her to his chest, feels her heartbeat slam against his own. She's sobbing so hard she can't breathe, but she's here. She's warm. She's real. One down. His hands are still shaking when the question slips out, quiet and deadly. Where's Colt? Maisie doesn't know, and Beckett already does. He carries her up the trail anyway, because leaving her is unthinkable, because if the mountain is taking children today, it's not taking her next. Havoc is unleashed. One command, 2 words. Seek Colt. The dog doesn't hesitate. She leads them to the second group. Fewer kids, more fear. And then there's Emma, standing too still, holding something she shouldn't have. a Telluride search and rescue cap, Colt's cap. Time does that horrible thing where it stretches and snaps at the same time. Emma isn't talking, she's not crying, she's gone somewhere far away, and Beckett has to pull her back gently, carefully, because if she shuts down completely, he loses the only witness. He kneels, soft voice, steady hands. Emma tells the story in pieces, lunch break, walking in a line, ground that just wasn't there anymore. A landslide. She was falling. Colt grabbed her, or pushed, or pulled. She isn't sure. She just knows she ended up safe. And Colt didn't. When Beckett asks the question he already knows the answer to, Emma nods. Yes. He fell. The world tilts. But Beckett doesn't collapse. He doesn't scream. He doesn't break. Not yet. He locks it down hard and fast, the way he was trained to do when everything inside him is on fire, because Colt is still out there, and if there's even a sliver of a chance, he sprints. The trail ahead is gone, just gone, a section swallowed by gravity and indifference, 50 feet down into trees and rock and shadow. County says there's no sign of a body. County says it might be a recovery. County says things they shouldn't say to a father. Beckett nearly puts one of them through the mountain. Instead, he runs for the helicopter. Orders barked. Plans made mid-stride. Havoc clipped in. Rappel gear ready. They drop into nothing. The descent is controlled, but his heart is feral. On the ground, Havoc searches like her life depends on it, because in a way, it does. Minutes stretch, then longer, then blue, bright, impossible blue. Havoc takes off, and there he is, Colt, alive, barely, pinned under a rock too big to move without killing him, pale, cold, bleeding in places Beckett can't see yet, but he's breathing. And when he opens his eyes and says Beckett's name, something holy and devastating cracks open in Beckett's chest. He goes into medic mode, tourniquet, assessment, commands clipped and sharp. He pretends not to see what's happening under the skin. Colt wiggles his fingers, wiggles his toes, too easily. Shock is already taking him. Then Colt says he's cold. Then he says nothing hurts. And Beckett knows. Internal bleeding, fast, lethal, the kind you can't outrun or outwork or outskill. The helicopter is minutes away. Colt has seconds. Beckett lies down beside him, wraps himself around his boy like his body alone might be enough to keep him here. They talk about the treehouse, about a zip line, about the lake. They talk about Mom and Maisie. Colt says he thinks he's dying. Beckett doesn't lie. He tells him he's loved. And then, because this child deserves the truth, he tells him what they were waiting to say, that he adopted him, that Colt has had a dad all along. Colt smiles, says he likes having a dad, says he's a gentry, says he got everything he ever wanted. His last words are love, and then he's gone. The mountain doesn't pause. The helicopter arrives too late. The forest doesn't care. Beckett screams anyway, because sometimes love is louder than death. And when it's over, when the world starts moving again, when men kneel and stand and look at him with grief-soaked eyes, Beckett makes one decision, the only one left. He gathers his son into his arms, and he says the words that will destroy Ella Mackenzie's life forever. I need to take him to his mother. The mountain doesn't care. That's the first truth that lands after Colt is gone. The trees don't bow. The rocks don't apologize. The sky doesn't dim out of respect. The helicopter still thunders overhead, like the world didn't just split in half. Beckett stays on the ground. He doesn't hand Colt over. He doesn't let go. He doesn't move when hands gently reach for him, when radios crackle, when protocol tries to exist in a moment where rules mean absolutely nothing. This is the part nobody prepares you for, the after, not the scream, not the moment the pulse disappears, but the silence that follows when your body realizes it's still breathing and your kid isn't. Havoc presses in closer, her howl fading into something broken and low, like even she knows sound won't fix this. Beckett's arms lock tighter, instinct screaming protect, even though there's nothing left to protect against. Someone says his name again. Someone always says your name when you're drowning. Eventually, reality does what it always does. It forces itself forward. Colt is lifted, carefully, reverently. Beckett walks with them because if he stops moving, he might actually collapse into the earth and never come back. And somewhere up the mountain, Ella doesn't know yet. That's the cruelest part. She's pacing, counting breaths, convincing herself that quiet just means busy. Because mothers are professional liars when survival demands it. When the truth finally reaches her, it doesn't arrive gently. It arrives like a structural collapse. No scream, no dramatic fall, just a sound that isn't a sound, something primal tearing loose from her chest as the world narrows to one impossible sentence. He didn't make it. There is a version of Ella Mackenzie that dies in that moment. The woman who believed love could outpace loss. The woman who thought if she endured enough, the universe would eventually blink first. The twins always knew better. Grief doesn't explode this time. It hollows. Days blur. Meals go untouched. The house fills with casseroles and silence and people who don't know what to say. Maisie stops asking questions because she already knows the answers will hurt. Beckett moves like a ghost with a pulse, functioning on instinct alone. They survive because that's what parents do when children are watching. And then time does its worst trick. It keeps going. 5 years later, Maisie talks to Colt like he never left, because in some ways, he didn't. She sprawls on the grass with candy in her hands and sunlight on her face and a life stretching forward whether she's ready or not. She fills him in on everything, the chaos, the siblings that followed, the way grief didn't disappear but learned how to sit quietly in the corner instead of screaming. She tells him she won, cancer-free, clear scans, future unlocked. And here's the thing, she's not guilty about it anymore. That took time. She admits she broke their childhood promise, the one made in fear and whispered in hospital dark, the one where survival was conditional. She thought death would be the thing that reunited them. Instead, life kept choosing her. So she makes him a new deal. She'll live loudly enough for both of them. She'll be brave in ways he taught her. She'll protect smaller people. She'll jump into the future without apologizing for surviving. She tells him about their parents, still in love, still cracked open, still holding hands like loss didn't win. She tells him about havoc, about new siblings, about ordinary days that still feel miraculous. And before she leaves, she asks him to stay close. Not as a ghost, as a presence, because some bonds don't break, they change shape. Maisie rows back across the lake with steady arms and an open horizon. Her future isn't haunted, it's held. And when Beckett calls to her from the porch, when life invites her forward again, she answers without hesitation. Because surviving wasn't the betrayal, living was the promise all along.